This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I talk about the world of sports and everything that's happened over the last week or so. We cover the Olympics and we talk about how the U.S. did pretty well, but Norway ran away with it. Then we talk about the MLB and the preseason that hasn't really happened, the spring training that hasn't really happened, but we hope to see some amazing baseball this year. We talk about the UFC and some of the amazing fights that have happened. Then we focus on the NHL and how Sidney Crosby has set a personal milestone that is really amazing. And then we finish up by talking about the NFL Combine and how this week could determine draft stock. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast with Josh. I'm Ben, and we are back. We are back to talk about, pretty much a lot of things this week. Josh, a lot of things have happened this week. But before we begin, how are you doing, Josh? How was your week? What's been going on?
I'm doing good, Ben. Like you said, there wasn't any main event like the Super Bowl that happened to talk about, but there's definitely a lot of happening still in the sports world we're going to dabble into today. Also, I noticed I got a haircut. Looks like you got a haircut too, sir.
Yeah, it's underneath that hat. I just, I'm the hat guy when I do videos. But yes, my wife. Thanks to my wife, she gave me a haircut. I don't trust many people with my hair, so this was like it was great to have someone that I trusted. So that helps, because precious hair up there. It is actually weird because I haven't gone to school yet. So tomorrow will be interesting to see what my students think. That's when it's really going to be like this.
That's when we'll really know if you did a good job or not.
Yeah, when they all check it out. But yeah, anyways, it's been a great week, like you said, of sports. The Olympics happened, Josh. I know not many people probably watch them or really care, especially if you're in the States and it's in China. It's like 12-hour difference.
Everything was happening at 11 p.m. at night over here, man.
Yeah.
I know some people stayed up to watch some of the hockey games at 1 or 2 a.m. and I was just like, man, you guys are dedicated.
Yeah, and as a European, I'm not a European, but as living in a European country, it's 6 hours ahead, so it's a little easier to during the school day. I'll keep up what's going on when I'm working. And as a Hungarian, married to a Hungarian, Hungary got 3 medals in the Winter Olympics, which is impressive. They got their first ever gold, individual gold in the Olympics. So last Olympics they won team gold in speed skating. This year they had a Hungarian. He's half Hungarian, half Chinese. He won speed skating, and they also won 2 bronze medals as well. So
Ben, I know that's only 3 medals for Hungary, but you said that was their first gold medal. How has the reaction been over there? I'm just curious. Being some in the States, we're kind of used to dominating.
Yeah.
In the Summer Olympics, I think is where we do better. We don't do bad in the winter, but I think we kind of expect to pull all these kind of medals. But in a country where it may not happen as often, how much more do those medals mean?
It's interesting. It kind of depends on where you're at, really. There was students that I have that are Hungarians that are at school that are into different team sports, whether it's water polo or whatever. So they keep track of not just the Summer Olympics, but also the Winter Olympics. But a lot of Hungarians that are into sports are super excited. There's actually a lot of the Chinese population here in Hungary. So they're actually excited too, because it's someone that's Chinese, but he's also half Hungarian. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, so he actually might not be half Hungarian. I'm pretty sure he's Chinese full, but he lived here long enough or something like that. Anyways,
he's a dual citizen.
Yes, he's dual citizen. Yeah. So he was born here, I believe, in Hungary, if I remember right.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it is a very interesting thing, because you think 3 medals, oh, that's crazy. But in the Summer Olympics, we had a fencer who won the gold medal for the 4th straight Olympics or something like that. So that was pretty good. This one was big because this is the first ever individual gold. So a lot of people that are in the sports world here in Hungary, I was here to talk about it all the time. It's all over there, the news and stuff. But what's crazy about it is he only won an individual gold. He won an individual bronze, and he was a part of the team that won bronze. So the guy pretty much took home all the medals.
But the country on his back.
Yeah, he did. He did. And speaking of medals, you talked about the U.S., right? And how it might be not struggling, but they're just not as dominant in the winter. The U.S. finished 5th overall with 25 total medals. They had 8 gold, 10 silver, 7 bronze. They finished 4th overall in total gold. Can you guess, Josh, who the top 3 were? I don't even know if you remember. I told you before the show.
Gold?
Let's see. For not for gold, for total medals, and then I'll see if you can guess the gold as well.
Well, I'm gonna rattle off all like the winter cold countries first. So is Canada up there?
Canada was right ahead of the U.S. They were 4th.
Okay. Do we have Russia up there? Anyway.
They're not called Russia. They're called the ROC because technically they were suspended.
Okay.
They were 2nd. They had 32 total medals.
And then the hosting country is China in there anywhere.
China, actually, believe it or not, was, let me look here. They were 11th overall in total medals, but they were 3rd in gold medals. So 11th overall in total, but they just said, hey, we're going to go all for it in. We're either going to get gold or nothing.
It's going to be gold, all or nothing. I got you.
Yeah. So you're missing 2 countries that actually one you might be surprised about that was in the top 5. So think Nordic countries.
Well, Nordic. How about Norway?
Norway was number 1 at 37 medals. They also led in gold with 16 gold medals.
Wow.
That, by the way, a lot of that was skiing. I don't know if you ever heard of the biathlon. Have you ever heard of the biathlon?
I don't think I have.
It basically combines skiing with shooting. So imagine like they carry a rifle. Yes, so they carry a rifle and they have to shoot targets and stuff. It's pretty cool. They dominated that. Let's just say Norway pretty much. Yeah, they just dominated. But you're missing one country that it might be a surprise that was 2nd in gold and 3rd overall. It's not a Nordic country. It's a bigger country in Europe.
Bigger country in Europe.
It actually might shock you.
Is it France?
No, close. It is Germany. Germany finished 3rd overall and 2nd overall in gold, which really shocked me that Germany did so well, but I don't know why it shocked me. But I'll give you the top 10, Josh, so you can kind of see if any of these stick out for you. So we already talked the top 5. So 6 was Sweden. I think that's kind of probable. Then you had 7 was Austria. Actually, tied for 6 was Austria. Tied for 6 as well was Japan. And then technically tied for 9th was Netherlands with Italy. So that would be the top 10. So the top 10 were Norway, Russia, Germany, Canada, US, Sweden, Austria, Japan, Netherlands, Italy. Japan surprised me that they were that high. I didn't actually think they were like amazing at Winter Olympics. So it shocked me a little bit.
Yeah, maybe a little bit too. Yeah, but
yeah, I mean,
really any of those.
I think Italy though. But Italy, if you go to northern Italy, there's a lot of athletes there. And actually, fun fact: this is your fun fact of the week, Josh. So for the U.S., a guy that grew up actually near my hometown named Louis Vito, he was in the Olympics, I believe, in 2010 for the U.S. A snowboarder. He did not make it in Sochi. No, I think he might have went to Sochi. I can't remember in 2014. Definitely didn't make it in 2018. He missed out on qualifying for the U.S. this year. So he ended up, because his family is also Italian, he ended up snowboarding for the Italian team and missed out on the final qualification by 1 point. So he didn't get to go in the final leg of the snowboarding. But I just thought it was kind of cool that a U.S. guy that's near my hometown switched to Italy because, why not? It's like transfer portal. They just transfer. He transferred countries
for the Olympics.
Dual
citizenship. We all need to be citizens in multiple countries.
Hey, I already said, I say maybe if Hungary has a baseball team going to the Olympics in 24 to Paris, maybe I can get myself a dual nationality and I could go play some baseball for the Hungarian national team. I don't know, but yeah. So that was I would say one of the most surprising things for the Olympics, honestly, Josh, was it was sort of surprising. I mean, not really that Shaun White retired. I think a lot of people that pay attention to sports know that was coming. He's talked about it for years, for a couple of years now. But it definitely was kind of a shock, to see a guy that I remember when I was a kid watching the 2006 Winter Olympics with my parents. I was like 6 or 7. No, was it? No, 26. No, sorry, I was 10. Sorry, my bad. 10. I was 10. I remember watching that and seeing his, his red locks, flowing outside of his helmet. What's your thoughts on Shaun White and what he's kind of done for not just snowboarding, but sports in general?
Yeah, I think Sean, I mean, has to be like the Tony Hawk equivalent to skateboarding, right? Like, I think most of us as kids tried skateboarding at one point, maybe just because we saw Tony
Yeah.
Hawk do it on TV,
Played the video game.
or played the video game. And I mean, I had a couple skateboards as a kid. I never could really nail anything down, but I definitely gave it a shot, mostly because of what I saw Tony Hawk do.
Yeah.
I never really got a chance to snowboard as a kid. I guess we just in Ohio, it's not really the area, I guess, to get into that. But I definitely did enjoy watching Sean do the half pipe, all the tricks, all the times. Like you, I have some. Those are some of my, I guess, bigger Winter Olympic memories of seeing Shaun White do his thing. And I guess maybe I'm not so surprised just because how old he is that this was his last Olympics. And you'd love to see a guy kind of go out on top on his last
I hated
one,
it. I hated that he finished fourth. That's the
he got fourth, just so close to getting just that bronze even.
So if you didn't know, he's hit some of the most amazing tricks in snowboarding history. Like, we're talking some of the most crazy tricks in snowboarding history. There's a lot of young people this year in the snowboarding that medaled, which is really cool. But, snowboarding was always one of my favorites growing up. But I'll be honest with you, Josh, one of my favorites, if not the favorite sport to watch in either summer or winter Olympics, is curling. I'm sorry. There is not a sport you can tell me that you can look like a middle-aged man that just came off of work the weekend and go out and get a gold medal. I'm just saying. They have mustaches. They're chubby. It's a great sport.
All strategy and technique in that game, right? It doesn't necessarily take athletic ability, as you said.
So I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe it does. Maybe if I went out and tried curling one time, it would totally wipe me out. I don't know. I've never given it a shot, but like you said, it doesn't look like it takes much to do it. But
my goal is,
I don't.
Josh, maybe when I get to come visit the States one time, me and you will go out curling. There's a curling rink in Columbus, Ohio. So I might have to check it out. And if I'm on time back in the States and do some curling, because I think it'd be fun. So
nice, like nobody's business.
I will say though, another one of my friends, Aaron Lynn, who has the Fifth and Goal podcast, his wife loves the figure skating, and I tried to watch that, and I've never gotten into it, but it's fascinating, just like the way they basically dance on ice, which is just crazy. But Josh, is there any sport maybe growing up when you watched the Winter Olympics that you kind of like hooked onto? Maybe like I know I played also Wii, the Mario Olympics on the Wii. So, but is
Sonic Winter Games?
Yeah. So, is there any sport that, like, when you were watching growing up, that you really latched onto?
Yeah, I kind of gravitated more towards the action ones. So, like Shaun White and the snowboarding was always one. The skiing, watching people like Lindsey Vonn and Michaela Schifrin, and then I guess the speed skating too. Like
speed skating's awesome.
Watching guys like Shawnee Davis for like the longer distance, but then the shorter track with like Apollo Anton Ono. Those are guys that I don't want to call them like legends in my mind, but I mean, when I think of Winter Olympics, those are still the first guys that I think of, and some of those guys haven't competed in years.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so actually, we have a friend here. Rebecca works with his wife, but he actually missed out because of COVID. He couldn't go to some of the qualifying. He was on the Irish national team. He was going to actually have the chance to qualify. So we got to learn a lot about speed skating. I actually got to meet one of the Hungarian speed skaters that went to the Olympics. So speed skating is a huge thing, I guess, here in Hungary. So it's kind of interesting to learn about it. I will never skate. Me balancing on ice is just not something that people want to see. So I don't think I'll ever. I don't think so. I don't know if I'd ever actually go there. But I will say one of the surprises of the Olympics, maybe not a big surprise, but the U.S. hockey team, they didn't do so hot, did they? Josh, I know we talked about it briefly, but maybe they didn't meet expectations, partly because they didn't have NHL players. There's probably a lot of reasons, but I think we would hope for maybe gold in that sense. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily blame it on not having NHL guys either, because you got to think like Canada also didn't have any NHL guys, correct? Like there were absolutely none. I think that's something that the NHL should try to work out in the future. I don't know if that's like a collective bargaining agreement issue.
It was so originally
they don't want it.
It originally was the collect. I think it was somewhat with the CBA. I'm pretty sure. I know that, but I think there was also some other things. There's a lot of like weird stuff that went on with that I know a lot of the NHL guys were really ticked off about, because they wanted to play for the Olympics. Like, who wouldn't? Like, Like who wouldn't want that opportunity? So there's a lot of that, I think, too. But again, Olympics is one of those things where it's a once in a lifetime thing. Like, what happens if you blow your knee out the next day? Like you'll never get to do it again. And so I've met some Olympians in my past, like, over the past years. I know we met a Paralympian, and I can't remember her name. That feels terrible.
Grace
now.
Norman.
Yeah, Grace Norman. That's right. We get to hold a gold medal, which was cool. Like I'll never get to do that because I'm not talented enough. But yeah. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on? I know we're gonna kind of talk about hockey. So hockey, some crazy things are going on in all sports. I mean, we could spend hours talking about the Olympics. Let's just finish up by saying this. I think the Olympics this year is very interesting to me. Obviously, there's a lot of political things with it being in China. We're not going to get into that. But I think one of the coolest things is I think, once again, those that enjoy watching the Winter Olympics were able to watch the Olympics and maybe get a sense away from all the COVID stuff. Obviously, you could tell there was still COVID going on, but it was a great time. I watched a lot of the highlights. It was really cool to see. Again, wish the U.S. would have won a few more gold medals, fewer medals overall. Hungary actually got gypped, by the way. I didn't talk about this. Fun story. So the guy that won the gold medal, his brother, all right, so he has an older brother, finished first and was supposed to win a gold medal in a speed track final. But he was awarded a penalty that wasn't really a penalty. And so he ended up losing his first place position. And that's how his brother got the bronze medal. So he was so irritated, like they were all irritated about it. So technically they could have had 2 gold medals and 1 bronze, but then the younger brother got the bronze because the other one didn't get the gold. It's a weird story, but he's kind of salty about it. And I would be too if I worked my butt off and to get gold medal and then have it taken away from me. So yeah, it is surreal. But Josh, anyways, that's enough with the Olympics. We're going to talk about hockey. Josh, what has been going on that you wanted to talk about that's kind of a big milestone in the hockey world?
Yeah. So Sidney Crosby, Pittsburgh Penguins, scored his 500th career goal last week. It took him 17 seasons to do so, but he's the 46th player in NHL history to score 500 goals. He's also just the second active player in the NHL with 500 goals. Alex Ovechkin would be the other one. But also the 18th player in NHL history to score his first 500 with one franchise. So then I found out that like 107 different players ended up assisting him.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 21 of them were unassisted, but yeah, a lot of players obviously contributed to that. Just kind of shows how much of a team sport hockey really is. Ben, I don't know about you, but I haven't been the biggest hockey fan my whole life. This year is a year that I've really tried to get more into it and watching and understanding the game more. I've kind of just followed it from a distance, like keeping up with like who the good players and teams are and stuff like that. But even as a kid, like I knew who Sidney Crosby was. Like there's just like guys, like everybody knows Tiger Woods is that dude in golf. LeBron is that dude in basketball. Tom Brady was that dude in football. And I feel like Crosby is that dude in hockey. Like the kid came onto the scene when he was 18 years old and has just been like dominating the ice ever since. I guess, do you have any like reaction to Crosby? What's been your impression of him growing up and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's interesting because again, I wasn't huge into hockey, right, growing up. I lived close to Columbus, so I went to a couple Blue Jackets games. Not really Blue. Actually, I went to Ohio State hockey games, believe it or not. That was my first ever hockey experience. But I grew up watching like on like 10 TV. I don't know if you remember 10 TV. There's a lot of like these sports shows in Ohio that I would like, get highlights of the Blue Jackets, or I would watch the Blue Jackets like on ESPN, like when they had Rick Nash. That was like the one guy I knew. Like that was the one dude that's the only one I knew. Right. But then two of my really good friends that I grew up with, Jordan and Evan, a little bit of my other friend, Elijah, they just started really getting into Blue Jacket hockey, and they invited me to a game. I think it was like my sophomore year of college. Might've been about that time. And they invited me to a game, and I was like, man, this is like really cool. Like I've never actually experienced this. That was my first game because I only went to Ohio State hockey games. So seeing a professional game, and that was like I think it was that game or it might've been another game, but I remember they were playing the Pittsburgh Penguins and they played against Sidney Crosby.
Okay.
That was the game before that the Blue Jackets beat them 7-1, and that was like the huge, big deal, right? Because if you don't know hockey, the Columbus Blue Jackets are like this small market team that somehow find
good historically.
Yes, and they're bad this year, but the last 6 years, they've been very consistent, making the playoffs, choking but making the playoffs. But the biggest thing I knew about Sidney Crosby is like I knew him from a couple of video games. I played NHL video games, so I knew a lot of the stars, right? In hockey. Sidney Crosby always just fascinated me because he was so young when he started, and he'd just done it for such a long time. It reminded me a lot of a kind of like I hate to say put him in like Ken Griffey Jr. range, but like someone that started young that just continued getting better and just continued. Everyone continued looking at him like the only thing that stopped him is injuries. If you look at Sidney Crosby, there's been times where he's been injured. You look at Ken Griffey, times where he was injured that cost him a lot of time. So I'd say Sidney Crosby is one of my, if I would watch the game of hockey more consistently, he's one that I really enjoy watching. Him and Ovechkin, Rick Nash, I think it was one of the like coolest guys when you talk about him. I don't know if you know Coach Callan at Cedarville, former head coach. Yeah. He was actually the chaplain for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he told me that a lot of those Blue Jackets players was really cool, and they would talk about Sidney Crosby and like Rick Nash and kind of what that was like. So yeah, I don't have a lot of I guess memories with hockey. But I remember like I always used to be I was the kid, right, that just loved the fights. Like that's all I cared about, right? Or I played the video game and I just wanted to fight somebody because I thought it'd be fun. You know,
you're definitely a fan of the Mighty Ducks growing up, right?
Oh yeah, like anything that involved some fisticuffs. The best is when you have the two goalies that just come out and they just decide to, because they can. I think it's the one sport where people purposely get a penalty. I think it's like the one sport that is actually like purposely done. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what your thoughts are, but like, I think hockey is one of those sports that kind of gets overshadowed in America by a lot of other sports. I don't know what your thoughts on that.
I've heard Pat McAfee talk about it on his show that like the NHL has like the best kept secret brand in all of professional sports because they don't market it, I guess, to the level that the NBA and the NFL market their product to. And the MLB kind of has this problem too. They're trying to get guys like Mike Trout to be noticed. But I mean, like Crosby, like is that dude because he's like one of the best guys in the league. But how many other guys that be in like that second tier of NHL talent that people might not know about? And at least watching more games this year, like this is the first time that I've really sat down and like watched multiple games like in person on TV, stuff like that. And as I learn the game more and more and it starts to make sense more to me, like I do enjoy watching it more. So I don't know if that's just something that the NHL has to figure out, but they really do have a good product. I really like watching hockey.
Yeah, and I think it's a product that is done right. It's kind of like the MLS is kind of that way too. Like you have like the niche fans, right? And like again, I'm sorry Europeans that are watching, Hungarians that are watching. I'm not comparing the MLS to Hungarian or European soccer. Okay, like hold your horses.
Premier League, EPL,
goodness. Like I mean, I've watched a lot of professional soccer games over here, and they make the MLS look like like kids play, right? So, but that's besides the point. But I think. Yeah, hockey is one of those things. I think congrats to Sidney Crosby. That's a huge milestone. That's like hitting the 500 club in baseball. It's a big milestone. So I think we have to, yeah.
Oh, I was going to mention some all-time ranks for Crosby.
Of course.
So Crosby actually, since he did start off so young at 18, right now he's only 34 years old.
Oh my goodness. I feel like he's been around longer than that.
Him and Ovechkin started the same season. Ovechkin's 2 years older.
Yeah.
But so in points, career points, Crosby ranks 26th all time. In assists, he ranks 24th all time. Pretty good standings. Would you, in your wildest guess, Ben, have in mind who might be the highest scorer in NHL history, points and goals?
Yes, but I'm blanking on his name, and I feel like an idiot because I know this 100%, and I feel terrible right now. And I'm gonna honestly just.
Oh man!
Hold on.
Oilers.
Yes, I know. Shoot, I might be actually using my computer. Wayne Gretzky. That's his freaking name.
Gretzky,
Oh my goodness.
yes, sir.
I'm an idiot. I
Wayne-
knew this.
Wayne is number 1 all time in points with
But do you know?
2,857
But do you know who's number 2? And it's one of my favorite players of all time to watch.
for points or goals.
Points.
Oh, that's a Jerome year, right?
Jerome Jagger, one of my favorite. The dude was like 45 when he retired. Like the dude was just he's actually not retired. He's playing semi-professionally in Finland, but I loved watching him. Like the thing is, if you look at the all-time points leader, by the way, it's not even close.
It is, man. Like Gretzky's almost 1,000 ahead of Jagger.
Like it goes, by the way, you know what's so funny? I'm looking at the list. It's Canadian, Czech, Canadian, all the way down Finnish, Canadian, Finnish. There's 2 Americans down at 23 and 25. By the way, Ovechkin is only 11 points higher than Crosby, and they're only 2 spots different from each other, by the way.
Ovechkin's also 133 goals away from Gretzky for the most all time, but Ovechkin's 36 years old. Gretzky retired when he was 38. It's going to take Ovechkin like averaging out like 40 to 50 goals the next 3 seasons.
Do you
any shot he gets that?
I think
he hasn't gotten 50s since like 4 years ago.
I think the hard part is the body in hockey just takes a toll. It's like football; they take a toll.
That's why I'm surprised Ovechkin's been able to last this long and still dominate to this level. Like he's still one of the best, most feared scorers in the game right now.
So this is what I would say. Do you know who the active leader in points scored is? That's higher than both of them.
Higher than Ovechkin and Crosby?
Yes, active leader. You'll never get this.
I probably won't, but let me think for.
He was born in 1979.
Oh my gosh, man. What would that make him? Like 40?
He's 40, might be 40, 42, 42, 43.
I got nothing, Ben. I don't know anybody that old.
Joe Thornton. Thornton. I don't know if you know who Joe Thornton is. He plays for.
Is it the Penguins, actually?
He plays. Hold on, I'm trying to. He was drafted by the Bruins. He played for the Bruins for years. He's playing for the Florida Panthers. It looks like right now. Yeah, Florida Panthers. Yeah, so that's who he's playing for right now. Yeah, he's played for a lot of teams.
Yeah. That's crazy. You can play hockey that old. Like as physical of a game as.
Well, he's also 6'4", 250.
So he's got the body. If you're to play hockey until you were in your 40s, you would need that body.
He has a great beard too. So yeah, that's hockey for us. I mean, I love hockey. I love the fights. That's the only reason I care, Josh. Let's be honest. So hockey's going great, but Josh, there's another like thing happening soon. What would that be, Josh?
Well, we are supposed to be in spring training right now, Ben. And for some wild reasons, we are not.
Oh, boy.
Do you have any info on that?
Yeah, it's called The Owners Are Idiots. That's what that's called. Owners are idiots. I
was going to say something along those lines, too.
It's ridiculous. Like, okay, if you don't know sports and if you're watching this and you're like, baseball, who cares about baseball? You know what? Honestly, you're probably not that far off. I would say this. So the big thing going on right now is there's a thing called the CBA. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically an agreement between the owners and the teams and the players. So basically they discuss things like salaries, like injury stuff, like, you know, how many games in a year, those kind of things. And then they sign this agreement, and then like 10 years later, it gets redone. Well, the issue is that the lovely owners are stubborn and they like their money. And so that's made a lot of the players mad. And every time that the players come with a great offer, by the way, I've looked at some of these offers, amazing offers, the owners, it's losing too much money or whatever. It's a lot of stuff. But
yeah, these billionaires, man, they're losing a couple thousand and they can't take it.
Yeah. So it's crazy because there's also rumors that they're going to cut the minor league system. I don't know about you, Josh, but the minor leagues baseball is like where I fell in love with like baseball games. I went to so many Columbus Clippers games. I've went to probably, I'd say 100 Clippers games. And so the fact that they might be cutting like minor league teams or minor league players is like really sad because Like, believe it or not, that's like a job for so many people. Yeah, they don't make a lot of money, but some of these guys have been doing it for 15 years in the minor leagues, and that's just their job. That's what they love to do. So it's interesting, the CBA. I don't know what's going to happen. Josh, what are your thoughts? What do you think is going on? You think there's any progress, or what's going on?
Yeah, it's some of the legal terminology and stuff like that is tough for me to understand, but I've been following along with guys like Jeff Passan, I think that's how you say his name, and Ken Rosenthal. Like, they usually do a pretty good job of explaining like all the confusing points and stuff like that. Sometimes it still goes over my head, but from what I can gather, I'm kind of with you on the same page that the players are not the ones at fault here. They kind of have like some reasonable offers. Like, they want the minimum salary, I think, to be like around $750,000. I think it's
which is not that bad.
Yeah, and it used to be $400,000, I think, from the last collective bargaining agreement. Like, that's what the rookies are making. So just stuff like that. And I don't think that Rob Manfred's doing that much to help this at all. I think he was brought on just to kind of like support the owners. And that's what they wanted. And so Rob Manfred royally screws things up because that's what the owners pay him to do. But I think what we're going to see happen, though, is as we get closer and closer to the season, and we saw this with the NFL's like last collective bargaining agreement situation, where as we get closer to the season and there's so many guys that don't have that 10-year, like $500 million contract, like that's very small percentage of the league that is like set for life, like money wise. A lot of these guys are making those minimum salaries and they're like, shoot, man, this is like my livelihood. Like, this is my career. I need this. And then a lot of guys end up caving to what the owners want. And then they end up having the season because they can't afford to miss a season. That's actually happened, I think, in the NHL. They actually missed an entire season because of players and owners.
Yeah. What do you think about, they're talking about the minor league system and taking away like, maybe levels or whatever. I don't know about you, but like, I think that's rough for baseball. Like, I'm sorry. Like I'm very like maybe in my own league with this, maybe I'm the only one, but like, I feel like taking away minor league baseball is taking away the opportunity for fans of all generations to watch baseball, affordable baseball. Let's be honest. You can go to a Columbus Clippers game for $10 in the outfield and watch a game with a lawn chair. Like, and they're not bad players. Like, these dudes are professionals. So my question to you is if this is like the route that in, the next 5-10 years, we don't really have a minor league system, or they redo it to where like not everyone could do it. What's your thought? Should it still be a single A, double A, triple A, or, that's just where I'm at. Like, I feel like you have to keep the minor leagues because that's what baseball is. And I feel like you have to keep something close to the same.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on the same page that like minor league baseball is like the most affordable professional sport out there. It's usually
100%.
very fan friendly. Like everybody can afford to go and watch it. Now, we also know that professional sports leagues are businesses at the end of the day, and they got to make business decisions. So I don't really know like all the financials of like what minor league teams can afford and not afford and stuff like that. But I know the tickets are cheap. I know they obviously don't sell out all the time because they're not like the Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know like how all that adds up. Like, if they lose money, like at the end of the day, or if minor league and major league salary money like just comes and they split it like that way, I don't really know. But if it is kind of like not profitable, I guess I can understand why they'd want to cut it. But then on the other hand, it's like you are kind of shortening the amount of guys that have that dream of playing professionally. Now, I know some of them aren't making that much money. Like you said, I think some guys make literally like $12,000 a year, like at the low levels. And that's tough, man. Like, you basically got to get out of there because that's not.
But the only thing that keeps them going is their dream. And I feel like you take away that, you're taking a dream.
To the double A and then to the triple A and then to the MLB.
Exactly.
And keep doing that until like eventually maybe they've been there too long and they see the writing on the wall and then they eventually have to stop. But yeah, I don't know if they need the 3 levels. Like, again, I have to look at like all the financial stuff, but I can't imagine that many guys hang out in single A ball that long. Like, maybe it would be a smarter decision just to start off with double A and triple A. Like, we don't see this like in any other sport. Like, we just have like a minor league system and then the major leagues.
Yeah. But you even think about it.
Like 4 levels of baseball.
But you even think about like, double A, single A baseball. Look at the Dayton Dragons. They have had a sellout, I think, for like, I don't know how many years it is now. They've had a sellout at every game.
That's right.
You
I
take
think
the
for
date.
professional sports, the longest sellout
Yeah.
streak. Actually,
You take the Dayton Dragons away from Dayton, Ohio. That's like you're taking part of their culture, the who they are. So it's
That's
an interesting
true.
thing.
That's true.
But speaking of baseball this year, let's preview a little bit. Obviously, there's no spring training yet. We don't really know what's going to happen. Still, there's like moves that could happen in free agency and all that. But what are some names that you might throw out there for people to keep an eye on for this year, however long this season is, that you think that people might want to pay attention to?
Yeah, I think after last season, like the household names that we'll be watching are obviously like Shohei Ohtani and Vlad Jr. Like those two guys, like kind of going at it all season long for that MVP. It just was kind of a sucky situation that one of them couldn't win it, because I think literally any other year Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is winning that. But how do you not give it to Shohei, who pitched and hit at the level that he did? Like, I just don't know how you can give it to him. It's just too bad that Vlad couldn't also like at least get a or like an MVP. Like, I mean, I think he's going to eventually get some later down the road. But since I brought up Shohei, like at what point would Shohei not get the MVP? You know what I mean? I think that if you can hit and pitch, you automatically are MVP.
I believe so every year, but I think we're going to get into a LeBron James situation. I think you're going to get
tired of it.
You're going to get tired because let's be honest, in basketball, LeBron James should win MVP almost every single year. Maybe not every year, but 90% of the years he should be winning. He should have 8-9 MVPs already. Just reality. I think Shohei Ohtani deserved it last year. I love Vlad Jr. I mean, his dad was one of my favorite players to watch. He hit the ball off the ground or whatever. But I'll say this: Shohei Ohtani is, if you don't know baseball, so if you're watching and you don't really know baseball, let's put this in perspective. This is like seeing, this is like seeing in basketball or let's say soccer. This is like seeing a guy score, let's say 30 goals in a season. And by the way, also play goalkeeper and get 8 to 10 shutouts.
Better yet, let's go to American football and see a guy catch 10 touchdowns as a wide receiver, but then also start at corner and get 10 interceptions on the defense.
So either way, soccer or American football, it's that concept. So what Shohei Ohtani did last year was, hey, I'm going to hit the ball. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to go pitch the same day. Like, you see pitchers hit, like there's some pitchers nowadays that can hit pretty well, but you don't see dudes launching 485-foot home runs and make it look easy. I've always been a fan,
almost 100 miles an hour on the mound.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Korean baseball because just the way they hit, like it's so cool. Like the high leg kicks and the way they just like, it looks like butter. It looks like they're cutting through butter. The way that they swing is just, as a baseball guy, is beautiful. I will say that from now on, attorney. But I would agree with you. Those are two. But I'm going to throw a name out. I mean, Tatis also. I think we should throw Tatis in there.
Fernando Tatis has to be in that conversation. One
of the guys that actually I think I'm going to throw out there that will only happen if he makes the major league roster is Hunter Green for the Cincinnati Reds.
Ooh, the pitcher, right?
Yes, he's a dude.
Big time prospect.
Which, by the way, in AAA and AA, played two ways a little bit. He played a little bit of outfield. This dude can throw 100. By the way, he just had Tommy John surgery like 2 years ago, missed a whole year of baseball, and this dude's still throwing 100 miles an hour. He can hit. They also have another pitcher named Nick Lodolo, another high prospect that is very good. But Hunter Green is one of those names that I think people should be paying attention to. But one of my favorite, like honestly, of a fun guy to watch that I think many people maybe don't realize is Soto, I believe, right? That's his name, right? For the Nationals.
Juan Soto from Washington.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite guys to watch. I think he's very underrated.
You talk about coming on as a youth, like this guy is like coming off hot, like Ken Griffey Jr. start, man.
And you think about another guy, Ozzie Albies. That's another guy that I really do enjoy.
One more too, since you brought up Albies. Season cut short last year because of injury. Ronald Acuna.
Yes,
I don't know when he's due to come back or how long his recovery is supposed to be, but he did end up missing, I think, all the playoffs.
Yeah, it was a lot of time, and I think he should be coming back at some point this year. So yeah, those are a couple of players that I think are going to be really interesting to watch. Josh, what are a couple teams that you're interested to see in baseball this year that you think might be able to run the table, depending on obviously free agency still, and there's a lot of moves that need to still be made?
Yeah, that baseball is always a tough one, Ben. I feel like the team that is coming out and win the World Series sometimes is like it's literally like ones you didn't expect. Like the Nationals won the World Series, 2 years ago? Yeah. And I think 60 games into the season, they were below 500. Yep. And they set some record for like having the lowest amount of wins by like some date, maybe June, and then still coming back and win a World Series. Yep. Like nobody saw that coming. And then on the other hand, it's like the Dodgers have been making like all these runs lately, and it'd be more shocking if they didn't because of how much money they spend, right?
Yeah.
But they also lost so many players, guys like Corey Seager parted ways, and there's a couple other names that are escaping me right now. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but they did have some guys end up getting picked off their roster. So I think that National League might be open. Maybe for that Brave squad to run the table again a little bit easier, or maybe the Padres and the Giants get their shot at that division now.
Yeah, and I think also a big thing is, I don't know if you heard, but the universal DH is supposedly going to be in play this year.
That is one thing that the both sides have agreed on, the players and the owners. We haven't gotten a spring training start yet, but
I'll be honest.
Universal DH.
I'll be honest. I hate it. 100% hate it.
You were bringing up Shohei hitting and watching pitchers rake like Bartolo Colon.
Dude, I hate it.
I don't know. I think a lot of pitchers actually do like to hit.
I just hate it because that's what I grew up watching. The AL, you have a DH. The NL, you see pitchers who don't want to swing. You see pitchers who want to swing. I think that's part of the history of the game.
In the World Series, we see how that matchup for the American League having to lose that DH, that extra hitter, when they go to the National League's home park. And then we see the National League maybe getting that edge.
Exactly.
It kind of creates an interesting situation in the World Series.
Yeah, obviously a team I'm looking forward to seeing what the Reds do. They're probably going to be in rebuild mode because I'm a Reds fan, and that's what we do.
So close, just 2 seasons ago.
Listen,
be on the right track.
The Reds go to the playoffs and they blow it. Back in 2013, 2014, they get to the playoffs, they blow a lead. Okay. Josh, I'm tired of being this optimistic Reds fan because every time I am, they decide to not spend money, which, by the way, if you didn't know, in baseball, there's no cap limit. You can spend as much freaking money as you want.
And there's no revenue sharing. So all the money that you make, you keep and pay your players with.
And yet somehow
all the big markets kind of have an edge in that, like your LAs and your New York.
And somehow the Reds continue to cut budget. And I'm like, guys, at some point, are we going to have to bring back my man Bronson Arroyo? Are we going to have to bring back Brandon Phillips? Like, what are we doing at this point? Because, whatever. So
yeah, I don't know, man. The Cleveland Indians are kind of in the same boat of not really paying guys.
It's not the Indians anymore. It's the Guardians.
The Cleveland Guardians. I don't know how politically correct we get on this channel, Ben, but the Guardians, the Cleveland
team,
baseball team is kind of in the same boat. I feel like since I've been born, they've kind of gone through phases. Like when I was born, they were making World Series runs with guys like Jim Thome and Sandy Alomar. And then once those guys become free agents, we don't pay them. They walk away. We rebuild. We slowly get back into contention, which would have been around the 2006-07 mark. So when I was about like 10, 11 years old, I watched them make another couple competitive runs to the playoffs. Those guys like Travis Hafner, Victor Martinez, CC Sabathia all get traded or not signed again in free agency. We rebuild again. We get the team that we saw in the 2015, 16, 17 range with Lindor and Jose Ramirez and guys like that. Now eventually, Lindor's already gone. I think Ramirez might be on his way out because I don't think they're going to be paying him. And we're going to be on this next run for a decade of rebuilding and collecting picks. And it just kind of happens every 10 years, Ben.
I will say this, though.
That's the life of a small market team, man.
Listen, the greatest team of all time is the Big Red Machine. So that's all I got to say. That's what I got in my pocket. I never got to watch them. My dad did. He grew up watching them. But, so
I don't know. That's got to be one of those teams.
Yeah, so baseball, it's going to be a crazy year. We hope things get figured out. Obviously, Josh and I being baseball fans, we hope to. If not, also, by the way, tune into college baseball, college softball. It's a great thing to watch. I know like Cedarville's baseball team's playing really well, but ESPN's going to be showing I think upwards of 1,000 different baseball, softball games as through the spring training time that was supposed to be spring training. So I'd say tune in. It's a great time to watch baseball and softball. So that's baseball. That's what we talked about. But Josh, there is another sport that you really enjoy that I watch occasionally. I like to pick it in it. What are some news that's coming out of the, as they say, the octagon?
Octagon.
We have never talked about fighting on here, so this is like a new wave for us. We're kind of We're stretching out a little bit.
Going into a lot of different markets, Ben. Yeah, we talked hockey, we've talked baseball, we're talking UFC now, like all the I guess the non-popular American sports. But the UFC is growing. The UFC is growing.
Dana White and Joe Rogan, my man. Sorry, yes. Am I allowed to say Joe Rogan on YouTube? I don't know.
Are we allowed to say Joe Rogan? I'm
sorry.
We might not be allowed to say Dana White soon, man.
Who knows? Who knows? But anyway, what's some news?
Yeah, so I guess we had a title fight the day before the Super Bowl.
Yes, that's true.
Israel Adesanya defended his middleweight title.
Which, by the way, this dude, I love his entrances. I don't even watch the fight. I just want him to do like the weird power. Whatever he does. I don't know what he does, but it's and I love like when he sticks up for Joe Rogan too. I'm just going to point that out there. Sorry. I had to say it. Sorry. Just going to point that out.
I've kind of gotten more interest in UFC just because I feel like they're one of the sports leagues that's doing things right in terms of making it all about sports, not making it like players versus owners kind of thing. Like everybody just seems to like have running a sports league down to a science. Like I like Dana White's work, but I got interested more into the UFC starting last summer when Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier were rematching, I think, for the third time. Poirier ends up, I think, getting a pretty good calf kick on McGregor, knocks him, or actually injures him. McGregor's not able to fight. Poirier wins. And so I've kind of been keeping a little bit more tabs. Then back in January, Francis Ngannou has a title fight with Cyril Gane in the heavyweight, and Ngannou wins that one. And then this UFC 271 that happened before the Super Bowl, Adesanya comes out, wins a rematch with Robert Whittaker, defends his middleweight title. And I got to tell you, Ben, like watching the UFC's promote its fights on social media, like Instagram stuff, is just, it got me hyped up. Like they played Israel's video. I can't remember who he was fighting, but it's this now famous clip. He's telling his opponent, "You can't beat me. I'm prepared to die."
Yeah, I love that. It's one of my favorite.
Oh man, that's like movie type stuff, man.
Well, the thing is, and people don't realize that that's really what he is. That's who he is. Like he's willing to put everything on the line. And Francis Ngannou, that's also like, I'll be honest, I'm not big into UFC. I never really watched it. Like I'll watch it. I put the video games because why not? I watched a little bit of boxing growing up, but like not a lot of fighting. But UFC, the only time I really watched it was, I remember I was into WWE a little bit growing up, and I watched Brock Lesnar when he switched to the UFC. Brock Lesnar was a terrifying human being. That man, he doesn't like people. He's come out and said that in interviews. Like, I don't like people. I don't like talking to people. And when he fights, like heavyweight UFC fights are so much different than any of the like boxing, I think, because it's just so much more vicious. Like, oh my word, the knees, the calf hits, the punches. It's just, I don't know about you, but I love the heavyweight for sure.
For sure, yeah. And speaking of Francis Ngannou, I kind of want to transition from Israel winning to kind of like a potential MMA boxing crossover fight here that seems to be coming together perfect. Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. And a lot of things are happening here that are going to kind of make this work out, I think, because Francis, he actually beat Cyril Gane with damaged ACL and MCL. Ooh. Like, I don't know if you saw any clips from the fight.
I did a little bit, yeah.
And that was preventing him from being able to get his kick game in and stuff. And it actually was the first time that Francis Ngannou won without, or actually won by decision. He's always won either by knockout or like by submission. 17-3. He's got kind of like a shorter career. He's only been, I think, in the UFC for 5 seasons, but he's been very, dominant since he's come on. But anyway, he's having knee surgery now to fix that problem. And he's probably going to be, they said it was going to take like 10 months recovery. Meanwhile, his UFC contract, I think, ends in December. So that means unless Dana White works out a deal with him, he's like kind of free to do like these kind of boxing ventures, because he has said like if he re-signs with the UFC, he wants to be able to go out and take these opportunities to fight guys like Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury, to set up fights kind of like how we saw with Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor a while back. Like he wants to be able to dabble into boxing because Francis actually has a boxing background. That was kind of like his upbringing in the fighting world. But meanwhile, Tyson also has a couple of big boxing matches on his plate for the rest of the year.
Fury.
So fitting Francis Ngannou in this year was going to be kind of tough for him. But I haven't heard any like major news outlet confirm this. I've just seen Tyson say on Twitter that him and Francis are fighting either February or March in Vegas 2023.
I'll be honest with you. Tyson Fury is one of the funniest fighters because he'll come out and be like, "Man, that was a great lad. He was a great man. I fought him to the death. He has ultimate respect from me. He has disrespect though. He's disrespected me." And I'm like, "What?" That was also a terrible accent, but I'm trying to imitate, right?
Him and Francis have kind of talked a little smack on Twitter too, like over this whole past year, like kind of flirting with the idea of fighting. But I mean, this March, February window in 2023 seems to be like that perfect storm. Another issue though, Ben, is that Dana White's not interested in working with Tyson Fury's promoter. I guess there's like a little bit of beef there. Dana's not really a fan of boxing. I think you've heard him probably talk a little bit of smack about Jake Paul. And
okay, but let's hold on before we go. Jake Paul, who's he fought? He hasn't fought a true boxer. Give him a true boxer. Put him in there with Manny Pacquiao.
Not a true boxer yet, but I think he's won more fights than what anybody mentioned. Everybody's told him so far that he wasn't going to beat Nate Robinson. He wasn't going to beat Ben Askren. He wasn't going to beat Tyron Woodley. Was it Tyron Woodley? Yes. Tyron Woodley.
He beat him twice.
So to his credit, he has beaten all those guys that I did not think he would beat.
I will say this. I thought he would beat some of them because he's training like a madman. But until I see him go in the ring with a Floyd Mayweather, with a Manny Pacquiao, with a trying to think of some of these other guys, I can't sit there and go, oh, this guy's gonna wreck the world of boxing. It's just hard for me to see that. And I think the same with UFC. Like, I love what Woodley said. He said, okay, you beat me in boxing twice. Come to my ring. I don't think we'll ever see Jake Paul in a UFC ring because I don't think Dana White will allow it. I don't think Dana White will ever allow outside people into the ring.
That's kind of the interesting part is like we've seen Conor McGregor go and box Floyd Mayweather, but we haven't seen a boxer come to the UFC, I guess, and have like that kind of a crossover fight in the octagon. But Dana, I mean, if Jake Paul's like, if we want to call him, I guess, the superstar of boxing right now, I mean, that kind of says a lot about boxing, right? Is like,
I think it says, but this is the thing though. Right now. I think it's not, I don't think it says it more about boxing. I'll be honest with you, Josh. I think it says more about the individual that's boxing. I think if you know how to promote yourself and you know how to do that, look at Tyson Fury, look at these guys. No one in the UFC really, I think, promotes himself outside of Israel. Israel, like, he's the one guy that
I think Conor. I'm going to give Conor credit.
Yes, like, Conor. Sorry, Conor. But I mean, like active guys that are actively going after it. Look at boxing; it's these guys that are ultimate figures. But you look at the history of boxing: Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali. By the way, Muhammad Ali's grandson is now boxing, who is, by the way, a stud. So, yeah. Keep an eye on him. I forget his name. It's Ali something. I can't remember it's something. But so there's a lot of, I think UFC is an interesting thing. So I mean, UFC is one of those things that obviously I didn't grow up on, but a lot of my friends do it. They do it for fun, right? Would you say that you're enjoying watching UFC? Do you enjoy watching it, or the highlights, or those kind of things?
I have enjoyed it. Yeah, it's I guess right now I'm just trying to learn how these guys like judge fights, because like in the Israel Whitaker rematch, that title fight, Whitaker looked to be like the more aggressive fighter, and I think he had a couple more takedowns, but I think Israel landed like slightly a couple more punches. And I guess when Whitaker was getting those like kind of like takedowns, he wasn't really doing much damage to Israel in the process. So I think total damage is something else that judges are kind of looking at. It went all 5 rounds. Both guys, I thought, fought smart, but sometimes it's kind of tough to see, I guess, who the clear winner is. And there's been sometimes in these UFC fights where people are like, man, the judges got it wrong. Like all the fans seem to be on board with who won, and then the judges pick somebody else. So yeah, it's like any other sport. It's like what I've been doing with hockey. It's just trying to like learn the guys, learn what they're known for, what the judges are looking for. I mean, obviously, like if you're getting a knockout, I mean, it's easy to tell who won that, right? But when it comes down to decisions, I think is when it gets a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's for anybody that's watching. I think we encourage you all to like learn about sports. Like that's how, some people ask me how Josh and I can do this, and spend an hour talking with you guys. It's because we just love watching sports. It doesn't matter what it is. Like I hated soccer. I came to Europe here. I'm in Budapest, Hungary. And now I feel like that's the only thing I enjoy watching. I watch people talk about soccer, and I'm like, my brother's going to kill me because he used to hear me hate soccer. And now, I love it. But I think that's with any sport that we talk about. But to finish up today and actually lead into next week's episode, yes, hint, hint, there's going to be a really big episode next week, which will involve Josh and I's 1.0 mock draft. Yes, we are putting our heads in business this week and trying to figure out our first round mock draft. I think Josh and I will be pretty much on the same page, but there's a few picks I think will be a little different.
We're pretty close on our 0.5 mock draft when we were just doing the top 10.
That's true. So
we'll see if anything changes after we see the combine, but
yes. And so that's a great segue there, Josh. So NFL combines this week, Josh. We know, if you don't know what the NFL combine is, it's basically the top. I think is it 100 athletes, 100 players, something like that.
It's a lot larger than 100. I think they bring in 300 athletes.
Okay, so top 300. They come in, they do a lot of these drills. If you're around football before, there are a lot of drills that we've done growing up. They do 40-yard dashes, lifting and jumping and all these different things, interviews. And so Josh and I thought we would talk about maybe our top couple guys that we think can make or break their draft stock with the NFL Combine. I actually have a surprise in mind that I haven't told Josh about, so we'll see what that happens. But Josh, is there what first off, are you going to be going to the NFL Combine this year?
I will not be. I will be watching as a fan like the rest of us.
I know you've went in the past, so yeah. That's a bummer.
It's been a good experience in the past, but yeah, this year I will just be watching from a distance. But we should still be able to see, because they do put a lot of the film out on these guys. We'll obviously be able to read all the numbers that they put up from their drills. We'll get to watch some viral media clips pop up and see what all the buzz is. So I think I won't be able to cover it as closely as if I was there, but I don't think it'll be impossible.
So Josh, for you, what is some guys that are going to need to have a good NFL Combine or could help them in the process?
Yeah, I don't think any of these two guys could hurt their stock potentially, because it seems like everybody's on board with Kayvon Thibodeau and Aiden Hutchinson being 1-2 in some order. But they're both very good edge rushers. I personally think Kayvon Thibodeau is the better guy. And I think
agree.
If they both, assuming they both compete in the combine, because we have seen guys like Chase Young sit out the combine because they don't want to limit themselves to just being a combine athlete. They want to focus on the other things. But if both of these guys compete in the combine, I think that gives Kayvon Thibodeau a chance to solidify himself as the clear number one overall pick over Aiden Hutchinson. I think he'll be able to prove that he's faster, stronger, and everything that he would be putting up will probably match up what he has put out on film. I think that's what most NFL teams look from the combine, at least. I don't think anybody's going to, Al Davis, I guess, is guilty of it sometimes, of looking at a 40-yard dash and saying that guy's a first-round pick now. But I think more commonly, NFL teams just look to see if what they see at the combine lines up with what they see on film. And if it doesn't, then they have some questions that they got to figure out. But I think Kayvon is going to solidify himself as number one over Hutchinson. Yeah,
so I would agree with you. I'm going to go with two guys that are high state guys. Shocker. I would go with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. We all know Garrett Wilson is probably the number one or number two receiver going to be chosen. It's pretty much down to him and Burks from Arkansas. Those are kind of consensus top two guys right now going into this combine. I think Wilson can do – I don't think he can do much either way. I think it's kind of solidified top 15. I think the one thing he can do is I think what his 40 time is will be a big one. I think if he can have a really good 40 time, because there's always been that understanding he's good, but is he super fast? What is his speed like?
Assuming that him and Burks are on the same level, if Burks is the faster guy, maybe that puts him up to number one.
And also, what is his vertical like? I think that's going to be an interesting one. It's not really talked about, but I think that's a big thing for receivers. Can you go up and high point the ball?
I think we've seen some film of Garrett getting to do that, like in that Michigan game, that touchdown he got. That's really when I started hearing buzz outside of Ohio of him maybe being the first receiver taken off the board.
Yeah,
so again, the combine will solidify what we're seeing on film.
Yes, and I think Chris Olave, this is an X factor, I think, in the NFL. Yeah, people think he's a first rounder, but then I've seen mock drafts that think he's a second rounder. Let me be completely clear when I say this. Chris Olave might be the best wide receiver in this class. And I'm going to just say it right now because I'll say this. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. No one cared. The only reason he went to Ohio State was because Ryan Day accidentally found out about him. Okay. That's how that all worked. Chris Olave is a amazing slot receiver. You put this man, not really a slot. He's sort of a slot, not really a slot. He's more of like a weird mix.
Moved to slot because of how athletic Garrett is, but
yes.
He can play outside.
Yes, and he has the top end speed. I don't know if he's going to have 4.3 speed, but he'll have 4.4 speed. And this man, I think, if he has a good combine, could be a top 20 pick. If he has a bad combine, he could slip to the second round. I've always said Chris Olave would go in the first round, either mid-teens to late to the 20s to 30. But again, I believe, yes, I think everyone believes Burks, Wilson, top. In my heart, I think that Chris Olave, he has the most overall leadership, drive, competitiveness. People have doubted him his whole life. I think Chris Olave might be the best wide receiver in 5 years. We'll see. But Chris Olave might be the best one that came out of that class. We'll see. But this is the surprise, though. It's not Chris Olave, Josh. It's actually it's another Buckeye. Are you shocked? But it's someone that I think his film will not have shown what he can do, and that is Ruckert. I don't know if you know, at the tight end for Ohio State. That man had
100%. I'm on board with this take.
That man had 31 catches this year for like 400, 500 yards, something like that. Not even that much, really. He really didn't do much. I actually can look it up, but I think the big thing for me is I think with him, he's very he's just not. He hasn't been used. He's the top tight end coming out of his high school.
And that's kind of like been the case with Ohio State always, right, Ben? They tight ends are always underutilized. They don't really look to them that much because they have like so much talent at wide receiver. They usually have a really good running back, and the tight ends just kind of get overlooked.
So let me read you his height here. He's 6'5", he's 252. Now listen, this are his stats. This year he had a career high in catches at 26, career high in yards at 309, and had 3 touchdowns. Last year he had 13 catches, 151, 5 touchdowns. The year before that, 14 catches, 142, 4 touchdowns. He's not a guy.
You're saying 31 catches, I thought that was this season. That's a career though, isn't it?
Almost. So it's 26, 13, 14. So he's had 39. He's had 54 total catches for around 600, 700 yards and like 12 touchdowns. So that what I'm saying is if he goes to the combine and has great physicals, shows off great in interviews, I think he can go from a 4th round pick to a late 2nd round pick. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, maybe not as. I mean, we've seen tight ends go that high. It could happen. I think Ruckert could first make a name for himself at the combine, but then maybe at his pro day, maybe teams that caught attention like at the combine will want to see him do a little bit more at pro day, and then he can kind of further solidify himself more. We've seen some guys do that, like initially make some noise at combine and then do that at pro day. I think Ruckert might be able to do that too. And I really like the guy.
Yeah, he's a good tight end. So my thing to finish up here is, obviously before we head in this week and work on our mock draft, what are you thinking about the quarterbacks? Do you think there could be any make or breaks here at the combine, or do you think we're going to see that more in the pro day and as we continue on?
Well, I think Zach Wilson solidified himself as number 2 QB with his pro day.
Yeah.
Not that Justin Fields had a bad pro day, but I think people just really got excited about what they saw from Zach, and then they were like, okay, this is our quarterback right here. So far, I think Malik Willis has the number 1 QB spot right now based on what we saw from the Senior Bowl. He just made a lot of noise, really showed a lot of accuracy, a lot of arm strength,
his
a lot
feet,
of athleticism. He's a freak athlete. We know that. So I think at the combine and then probably later on at pro day, he's going to have to continue to show maybe some more of that arm talent. But I would say based on the Senior Bowl. Like, I think in our mock draft, I had Kenny Pickett being the first quarterback taken off. Right now, after the Senior Bowl, I'm going to go ahead and say going into the combine, Malik Willis is QB1 going into this week. And we'll see if he holds that all throughout by the end. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I agree.
Because there's other QBs in this class. I mean, it's so close. Like, there's not a lot of high-end talent, but I feel like the guys like Malik and Kenny Pickett and Sam Howell, like, they're very close right now, and there's not much that separates them.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I think there's a lot of going to be a lot of shifting, I think, in this. And yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's going to be interesting dynamics. I think it's going to be interesting combine. Like I said, Josh and I will have our mock draft 1.0 out next week. We'll have graphics. We'll post the graphics on the video. If you're watching or if you're listening, you could check them out probably on our social media or whatever. But it's going to be an interesting take. We'll see where we're at. I think we're going to be green on some, and I think there'll be a few surprises. We all know that I'm going to put at least 3 Ohio State players in my top 32. That's just going to happen. Let's be honest.
Speaking of Ohio State, man, at this combine, I think they only have 7 players, and that's very low for most Ohio State teams. But I think that kind of shows how young last year's team really was. That they're only saying 7 because I don't think that's because of a lack of talent. I think that's because of a lack of veterans that are going to the NFL.
They've only lost 10 guys this year that are going to the NFL, and their average age was like 20.9 or 21, something like that. It's crazy low. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think Ohio State, but I think this, our mock drafts, I think are going to show, obviously we'll probably be wrong on a lot of things, but I'm interested to see where we go, because obviously then before the draft, we'll have a mock draft 2.0 and we'll be able to maybe have more after pro days and stuff. But it's gonna be interesting for all of you that are listening. We want your feedback, so give us your feedback on the UFC thoughts, on the baseball thoughts, on the Olympics, whatever you're interested in. Let us know below. Like, we would love to hear your thoughts. I know I've got some DMs the last few weeks on some of our topics, some disagreements, but that's always fun. I enjoy it. I know Josh and I enjoy talking about it. We enjoy it, having you guys listen. If you've been listening on Spotify or any of the podcasting platforms, thank you first off, and then make sure you guys keep listening. And if you're on the old YouTube, if you like seeing our faces because we're so beautiful, then keep on clicking that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. You get to see all of this. You get to see my other podcast, Real Talk with Ben. My wife is going to be on this week, so that's kind of fun. So there's a lot of videos going to be coming out. I know Josh on his YouTube channel, he had a Super Bowl. You talked about the Super Bowl this last video you did. So what's your YouTube channel so that they can also follow you and not just us on here?
Yeah. Just search out Josh Burris, and I should be one of the ones that comes up.
There you go. So check them out. He always has a lot of cool videos, different videos that he does. It's very interesting. And tune in next week for our mock drafts 1.0. It'll be a fun time. An hour of us talking about mock drafts. What gets better than that? It's just brilliant. So anyways, thank you guys so much. Remember that you are valued and that people do care for you. And have a great week, and we'll see you next week.